Um, I'm going to try to make a couple of observations and then follow up with a question. In my opinion, confidence building will simply not, a confidence building suspension will simply not work. Iran has tried it for 18 months, and it was perceived as one of Khatami's weaknesses toward the West. And if you look at some of the comments that were recently made by Khamenei, saying Ahmadinejad did a good job, it speaks to that. I also don't believe that Zone 3 works. Israel believes that the nuclear deterrence is essential for its existence, and is no way, no how going to, it would be very unrealistic to believe that they would give up that. So also we have the situation where really the issue of enrichment is no longer an economic issue for two reasons. One, Iran doesn't trust West. During the 8 years of war, there were a lot of times that West provided help to Iraq, and Iran simply, both at the government level and I dare say, at some individuals within the country, they feel that West did them wrong during the 8 years of war. So they won't trust West and suspend the enrichment. So I see any solution that can come about has to address two elements. One, if it has a prayer of a chance on the West side, it must address Israel's concerns of security. Two, it must address Iranian national pride on the Iranian side, because the current regime has taken hold of this nuclear energy issue as wrapped in a flag, as some of the commentators originally said, and made it a pride of nationalistic imagine. So I see that some suggestion like Ambassador Pickering had made, without the provision that if it fails, it automatically results in some sort of a destruction of the nuclear facility. That's something that might be something for both sides to agree upon. It addresses that the Iranian national pride that yes, we have and we can enrich in our facilities, and it also addresses the Israel security. I wanted you guys to address that.
Right, I think we see from the discussion here, and Nicholas said a while ago of the IEM saying that the Iranians are rational and that they are weighing the pros and cons. And that is what you do for any negotiation. I start from the premise that Iran does not have an absolute existential need of nuclear weapons, or by any of the others. And so they may be affected by other factors. The economy is one of them. It is not economic to have enrichment of 2 or even for 4 reactors. The South Koreans have 20 reactors and they import enriched uranium. So that should weigh on the side of not accepting. Now, as to pride and achievement, yes, I think that the European Union has catered for that in saying that we are not against your nuclear program or technology. We accept that you may say it may be better to use nuclear power to generate electricity and then we sell the oil. That may be a good proposition. They are not denying that. In fact, they're saying we can participate in this. So I think that they are conceding that and saying that no, there's simply no economy in what you're doing. And another factor is, as I mentioned, that there is very little uranium in the ground of Iran. It's one of the countries that has little. So for the long run, if they want to have a big nuclear program, they cannot rely upon it anyway. They will be dependent on Australia or Canada or others to import. So with some assurance of supply, I think this could also be used. Now, it seems to me that the United States and the West have painted themselves into a corner when they say that you must suspend the enrichment, and that they should sit down. Because saying to them that, look, suspend, this is the problem, suspending enrichment, now you do that first, thereafter we'll sit down and talk what carrots you again. And the carrots have not been used by the US. I mentioned the two that they used in the case of Korea, namely diplomatic relations and the guarantee against any attack from the outside. So I don't think they have exhausted diplomatic line.
I would only add a couple of things. The suppositions in your question look like they would be best answered by relaxing and letting Iran go nuclear, which I don't really think was your intention, nor was it basically, I think, the answer that you wanted. The Israeli security concerns, of course, can only be dealt with through a peace process involving Israel, the Palestinians, Syria, and the rest of the region. There is an old Israeli policy. I say old because very few Israeli prime ministers have stepped forward to reiterate it, but none have put the knife in it. And that policy is basically they would consider a nuclear-free zone when there is peace in the region. There are big definitional problems that we haven't got time to go into tonight, but they're important. I think the question of the Iranian national pride has to be, of course, put up against the reality of the AQ-Khan network and the way in which this technology in large part came into Iranian hands, even though that's not the Iranian view. But it's something that at least has to be looked at. The U.S. for a long time, and I was the U.S. government official at the time, argued that Iran should have no nuclear program. And I sent a telegram to Washington in 1994 from Moscow saying it's time to end that. It's time to say that if a country wants to build a nuclear program, if that's where they want to put their money, we should do it and go ahead with the Iranians, but on the basis that we introduce all possible safeguards against this program being diverted to nuclear weapons purposes. The same logic has now been applied to enrichment. I'm not sure, in fact, how long we can persist. I agree with Hans Blix on the point that I would certainly want to have the first subject discussed between the U.S. and Iran is to be some kind of temporary suspension. I would think that we would have to put on the table both the question of regime change and the use of force, but I would not relent on those, certainly until we got a satisfactory nuclear agreement. But I don't think we'll get a nuclear agreement from Iran, even if we go down this road, without being prepared to put those two issues on the table and sell them at whatever price we can for whatever we can get out of the question. Finally, we did not suggest that there would be an automatic response to go to war against Iran if it broke out. We only suggested that the provisions to allow states to do so be incorporated in the resolution so Iran would understand that it would potentially have to pay to the international community a very high price if it went in this direction. This is unusual because neither with Israel, Pakistan, or India has such a proposal been made, but it is something that people at the moment consider to be not illogical under current circumstances.